Jake Turner had lived most of his life believing the world had already given him everything it intended to and taken everything it could. His Arizona ranch, a wide stretch of dusty land surrounded by mesquite trees and distant red cliffs, was the one thing he remained loyal to. It was quiet, predictable, and didn't expect anything from him. That was how he preferred life, simple, solitary, and steady. But that peaceful rhythm cracked the moment he saw a silhouette riding toward his ranch at sunset. Jake was fixing the fence near the corral when the orange sky bled behind the ridgeline. That's when he noticed a lone rider approaching, steady, purposeful, and strangely familiar. At first, he assumed it was a traveler passing through or maybe one of the ranchers from town. But as the figure drew closer, something in Jake's chest tightened. The rider was a woman. Not just any woman, an Apache woman, dressed in traditional beads and leather, with long black braids that fell over her shoulders like dark rivers. She rode with confidence, her back straight, her gaze fixed ahead. Her horse, a tall paint stallion, moved gracefully through the dusty path leading to Jake's gate. Jake wiped sweat from his brow, confused and curious. Women didn't usually ride out to this far corner of the land alone, especially not ones from the local Apache communities who tended to keep to themselves unless necessary. When she reached the gate, she slowed her horse, dismounted with fluid ease, and stood before him. Up close, he saw she was young, mid-20s maybe. Her face was strong, proud, yet softened by an expression he couldn't quite read. Something tugged at his memory. Her eyes. He had seen those eyes before. The woman stepped closer, dust swirling around her boots as the warm wind lifted the ends of her braid feathers. She studied him with an intensity that made Jake shift his weight uneasily. Ranch life had made him used to silence, but this was different. This silence felt like a moment waiting to break. "Even in, miss," he said finally, tipping his hat politely. "You lost." Her lips curved, just slightly, into what might have been a knowing smile. "No, Jake Turner," she said, her voice steady, almost melodic. "I'm not lost." Jake froze. She knew his name, but he couldn't place hers. He cleared his throat. "Have we met?" She took one more step forward. "Yes," she said softly, "but it's been many years." Jake searched her face again, brows furrowed, heart beating harder than he expected. Memories swirled in his mind like dust devils, but nothing connected clearly. The woman took a breath and said the words that made Jake's boots feel rooted to the earth. "Remember me, Cowboy." Jake blinked, stunned. "I'm the Apache girl you saved years ago, and I've returned to marry you." The world around him went still. The rustling grass, the distant cattle, even the wind seemed to pause. Jake Turner, a man who thought he'd seen everything, suddenly felt as if his entire past had just ridden back into his life, wearing braids, beads, and a destiny he never expected. Jake Turner felt the ground shift beneath him, not literally, but in the deep, unsettling way that happens when the past collides with the present. The Apache woman stood just a few feet away, her braids swaying gently in the warm breeze, her eyes steady and impossibly familiar. He searched his memory, digging through years of dust and forgotten moments until a single image flickered into focus. Small, trembling hands, frightened eyes, a girl barely alive, clinging to consciousness. Jake swallowed hard. "Lena," he finally whispered. The woman's lips curved into a soft, knowing smile. "Yes," she said, "you remember." Suddenly, he was no longer standing at the ranch gate as a weathered cowboy. He was reliving a night many years ago, a night that had never truly left him. He'd found her during one of the worst storms to strike the region. The wind had howled through the canyon like a wounded animal, and Jake had been riding back from town when he heard a faint cry near the creek bed. He dismounted, lantern in hand, searching through the mud and twisted brush until he found her, a young Apache girl, bleeding, terrified, but still alive. Jake didn't think twice. He wrapped her in his coat, carried her to his horse, and rode through the storm to find her people. He protected her through the night, whispered comforts, gave her water, and kept her warm. When dawn finally arrived, he delivered her to an Apache elder who'd been searching desperately for survivors. And then she was gone. A memory sealed away, never expecting to rise again. But now she stood in front of him, grown, strong, beautiful, and unmistakably determined. Jake exhaled slowly. I thought you didn't make it," he admitted, voice rough with emotion he hadn't felt in years. "I did," Lena replied gently, "because of you." She stepped closer, and Jake felt something inside him shift again. "My father never forgot your courage," she said. "Nor did I. I was young, but not too young to remember the man who gave me a second chance at life." Jake scratched the back of his neck, suddenly feeling 10 years older. "I didn't expect this," he muttered. "I know," she said softly, "but I've searched a long time to find you." Jake's brow furrowed. Why now, after so many years? Lena's expression deepened, serious, emotional. "Because the time is right. My father made a promise before he died. He said if I ever found the cowboy who saved me, I should honor him." Jake frowned slightly. "Honor me how?" Her answer came without hesitation. "By becoming your wife." Jake nearly stumbled backward. He felt heat rise across his face, not embarrassment but shock, disbelief, and something else he didn't dare name. "Lena, that's not, you don't owe me that," he stammered. "I know," she said, stepping closer, "and I am not here out of duty." Her dark eyes locked onto his. "I am here because I choose you." Jake's breath caught in his chest. Her voice held confidence, warmth, and a certainty he had never seen in a woman, not toward him. "You saved me once," Lena continued. "Now I've returned to give you what you never asked for but always deserved." Jake stared at her, stunned, his heart pounding in his chest like a drum echoing across an empty canyon. And for the first time in a long while, the cowboy who believed he'd live out his days alone wondered if fate had just circled back around with a purpose. Jake Turner stood frozen in place, the weight of Lena's words settling over him like dust after a cattle stampede. The evening sun stretched long shadows over the ranch, painting the earth gold, but Jake hardly noticed. His mind was tangled, caught between past memories, present shock, and an unexpected future staring him right in the face. Lena remained standing there calmly, as if she'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. She didn't hesitate. She didn't falter. She simply looked at him with those steady, unblinking eyes, the same eyes he'd seen years ago in the glow of his lantern as she fought to stay alive. Jake finally inhaled, realizing he hadn't breathed properly since she spoke. "Lena, you're talking serious," he said slowly, voice thick. "Marriage isn't something you promise because of a good deed." Lena stepped closer, the beaded fringe of her clothing swaying softly. "I know that," she answered, "but this isn't about repayment." Jake rubbed his temple in confusion. "Then what's it about?" She glanced toward the horizon, where the sky bled from orange to purple. "My father believed that the world sends us certain people as gifts," she said quietly. "People who appear at the exact moment we need them most. You were that gift, Jake." He stiffened. "I was just doing what any decent man would have done." "No," Lena replied firmly. "Most men would have ridden away. Most men avoid trouble. But you," she paused, her voice softening. "You picked up a wounded child who wasn't yours. You shielded me with your own body during that storm. You stayed awake through the night to keep me alive. That kind of heart is rare." Jake looked away, emotions tightening in his chest. He wasn't used to this praise, gratitude, someone seeing him deeply. He spent years avoiding attachments, avoiding thanks. The world didn't usually offer such things. Lena continued, her tone gentler now. "Before my father died, he told me something." She took a small leather pouch from her saddlebag and held it out to Jake. He stared at it but didn't take it. "What's that?" he asked. "A promise," she said, "one he made to you through me." Jake's brow furrowed. "Lena." She opened the pouch herself. Inside was a small carved wooden token, a symbol he recognized instantly. A circle with two crossing lines, the Apache symbol of union. Jake stared at it in disbelief. "My father said," Lena whispered, "that if I ever found the man who risked his life for me, and if my heart agreed, I should return to him." Jake's voice was barely a breath. "Return how?" Lena met his eyes again. "Not to repay, not to obey, but to offer myself in marriage if that man would accept." Jake felt the air leave his lungs. This wasn't just tradition. This was a sacred promise, one her father made before his final breath. "Lena, that's a heavy burden," he said quietly. "It is not a burden," she replied. "I carry it because I want to, because I choose this path, because I choose you." Jake's hands curled unconsciously at his sides. Fate wasn't something he ever believed in, but right now, he wasn't sure anymore. "I didn't come here out of obligation," Lena added softly. "I came because my heart led me here." Jake swallowed hard, still stunned, still lost, still trying to piece together what this meant for his life. And somewhere deep inside him, where loneliness had lived for years, something flickered. Something warm. Something hopeful. The ranch grew quiet as twilight settled over the land. Coyotes yipped in the distance, and the cool desert wind carried the smell of sagebrush across Jake Turner's porch. He leaned against the railing, the wooden token in his palm, turning it over again and again as though the answer might be carved somewhere on its surface. Inside the house, Lena moved quietly, placing her small belongings on a chair, careful, respectful, not imposing. Every movement she made seemed thoughtful, almost ceremonial. Jake found himself watching her through the doorway, unable to shake the feeling that his life had shifted in a way he couldn't control. Finally, Lena stepped out onto the porch, a soft glow from the lantern casting warm light on her features. "You're troubled," she said gently. Jake exhaled, a deep sigh from somewhere ancient inside him. "Lena, I'm a cowboy. My life's dirt, sweat, cattle, and sunburn. What you're talking about, marriage, is a big, heavy thing." "It is not heavy when the heart carries it," she replied. He gave her a tired smile. "That's beautiful, but life ain't always beautiful." Lena stepped closer, her expression calm and steady. "May I ask something, honestly?" Jake nodded. "If I were not Apache, if there were no tradition, no promise, would you still hesitate?" Jake stared at her. It was a question that sliced right through every excuse he'd been hiding behind. After a long moment, he answered, voice low, "Yeah, I think I would." Lena's eyebrows lowered slightly, not in offense but in curiosity. "Why?" Jake swallowed, struggling to find words. "Because people leave," he said finally. "That's just how life's been for me. Folks come and go. I guess I got used to not expecting anything permanent." "And you believe I will leave?" He hesitated. She stepped even closer, her voice becoming softer, almost tender. "Jake Turner, I did not cross states, mountains, and rivers to leave." Jake felt a slow warmth spread through his chest. Lena continued, "The night you saved me, I could barely breathe. I had lost so much blood, but I remember your voice. You told me to hold on. You kept saying, 'You're safe now.'" Jake blinked, surprised she remembered such details. "I held those words all these years," she whispered. "Those words became my strength, so do not think I came here lightly. I came because my heart remembers you." Jake's throat tightened. He turned away, gripping the railing again, staring into the dark. "Lena, I'm not sure I'm the man you think I am." She didn't argue, she didn't deny it. Instead, she touched his arm, just a gentle brush of her fingers. "You are the man who saved a dying child," she said softly. "That is the truest version of you." He turned, eyes meeting hers. For the first time, Jake saw not a girl he once rescued, but a woman who had crossed an entire lifetime to find him again. The night wrapped around them like a quiet blessing. And for the first time in years, Jake didn't feel alone. The next morning, sunlight crawled across the wooden floorboards of Jake's ranch house. Jake woke earlier than usual, the old habit of a rancher, but something felt different, lighter, though he couldn't explain why. Maybe it was because there was someone else in the house, someone who wasn't just passing through. He stepped out of his room and found Lena already awake, standing near the window, tracing the morning light with her fingers as though she were greeting an old friend. She wore one of his spare flannel shirts, too big on her, sleeves rolled up, hem brushing her thighs. Somehow, the sight warmed him more than any sunrise. "You're up early," he said. She smiled softly. "Apache women wake with the sun, and I wanted to help with the morning work." Jake raised a brow. "You don't have to prove anything." "I am not proving, I am participating." He couldn't argue with that. Outside, the ranch was waking too, horses shifting restlessly, chickens clucking, the wind whispering through the cottonwood trees. Lena followed Jake out to the corral, watching his every move with quiet interest. When he saddled the horse, she stepped forward. "May I try?" Jake hesitated. "Do you know how to saddle a horse?" "I was raised in a desert tribe," she replied with a small, teasing lift of her chin. "Not in a glass house." He chuckled, handing her the blanket and watching as she positioned it with practiced hands. She wasn't just competent, she was graceful, strong in a way that wasn't loud or demanding. Jake found himself admiring that more than he expected. When the horse was ready, Lena took a step back, breathing in the dusty morning air. "This land suits you," she said. "You belong here." Jake folded his arms. "Some days I'm not sure I belong anywhere." She turned to him, serious now. "You belong somewhere, everyone does, even if they forget." Jake looked away, feeling the weight of her words settle inside him. They worked together through the morning, feeding the horses, mending a fence, collecting eggs. Lena didn't slow down, didn't complain, didn't ask for anything. She worked beside him as though she had lived there all her life. At noon, they rested under the shade of a cottonwood tree. Jake handed her a canteen, and she drank before passing it back, her eyes lingering on him a beat longer than necessary. "You're quiet today," she said gently. "Just thinking." "About me?" Jake didn't answer immediately. He stared at the horizon, at the dust drifting like smoke. "Yes," he finally admitted. Lena's expression softened. "And what do you think?" He exhaled. "That you're the first person in a long time who makes this place feel alive." Her breath hitched just slightly, a tiny sound, but he heard it. Then she shifted a little closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Jake Turner, I did not return to your life to be a burden. I returned because my heart led me back." The wind rustled through the trees. And Jake realized a truth he had been avoiding for years. He wanted someone to come home to. Someone who chose him. Someone like her. The afternoon sun slanted across the ranch, turning everything gold as Jake and Lena finished their chores. Dust clung to their boots, sweat glistened on their foreheads, and the easy rhythm between them felt almost domestic, almost like a life already shared. But Jake kept feeling a tightness in his chest, something unspoken pushing against him. By evening, Lena helped him put away tools in the barn. She lifted a wooden crate with surprising strength, placing it on a shelf above her head. Jake frowned. "You shouldn't lift heavy things like that," he said. Lena tilted her head. "Why not?" "You might hurt yourself." "I have carried heavier burdens than wood," she replied softly. Something about the way she said it made him pause. Jake leaned against the barn wall, arms crossed. "Lena, you said your people wanted you to find the man who saved you. But why? What happens if you do?" Lena hesitated, brushing dust off her hands. When she turned toward him, her eyes held a sadness he hadn't seen before. "There was a prophecy," she finally said, "in my tribe. After I recovered, the medicine woman said my life had been tied to another's fate, that I had been saved for a reason, that the man who spared me would shape my future. So they told me to seek you when I came of age. Jake's throat tightened, and if you did. My people believe that ignoring destiny brings misfortune. She paused, not just to me, but to the one connected to me. Jake stiffened, misfortune for me. Only if hearts refuse what fate offers. Jake laughed once, a hollow, nervous sound. So you're saying if I don't marry you, I'm cursed? Lena stepped closer, her expression clear and steady. No, I am saying that running from what is meant for us brings sorrow, not curses. He looked away, running a hand through his hair. Lena, I don't know if I'm ready for something like this. You are afraid, Lena said simply. He snapped, wouldn't you be? No, she said without hesitation. I have known since childhood that I would return to you. My fear would be in losing what was promised. Her certainty shook him. He took a step back, needing space, needing air. But I'm not the same man who saved you years ago. I'm older, tired, set in my ways. And I am not the same child who lay weak in your arms, she countered gently. We have both changed. That is what makes this real. Jake felt something inside him crack, not break but loosen. Lena reached out, her fingers brushing his wrist. Jake Turner, I did not come to capture you. I came to stand beside you. Her touch was warm, grounding. He didn't pull away. Instead, he let out a slow breath, feeling the walls he'd built for years beginning to weaken. Lena, I don't want to hurt you. You won't, she whispered. How do you know? Because men who fear hurting others are the ones who don't. The barn fell quiet around them, dust floating like drifting stars in the dim light. And for the first time, Jake wondered if fate wasn't some mystical idea, but simply a moment like this. A moment where two lives finally aligned. Night settled over the ranch like a soft blanket, the sky painted with 1,000 shimmering stars. Jake and Lena walked back toward the house from the barn, their steps slow, unhurried. Something had shifted between them, something real, something neither of them dared to name yet. Inside, Lena prepared a simple meal while Jake lit the fire. The warm glow filled the small cabin, making it feel less like a lonely cowboy's shelter and more like a home that had been waiting for a woman's presence. Lena placed the food on the table and sat across from him, watching him with quiet curiosity. You are thinking too much again, she said. Jake chuckled softly, can't help it. Then say what troubles you. He rubbed the back of his neck, searching for the right words. Lena, people around here don't exactly welcome outsiders. Especially not native folks. If you stay here with me, you'll face things you don't deserve. Lena met his gaze without flinching. And you believe I have lived a life without hardship, that I do not know how to endure. Jake, I have survived more than unkind stares. He dropped his eyes to his plate. She wasn't wrong, but the thought of her being hurt, judged, mocked, rejected because of him burned inside his chest. After dinner, they stepped outside again. The desert air was cool, and a light breeze brushed against them as they walked to the porch. Lena sat on the steps while Jake leaned against the beam, arms crossed. For a while, neither spoke. Then Lena said softly, I will tell you the truth of why I came. Jake tensed. You mean you haven't yet? I have told you pieces, but not everything. He sat beside her, giving her his full attention. Lena looked out at the vast darkness. When I woke after being injured all those years ago, the elders told me that a man had saved me. They said I owed you a debt, but it was more than tradition. She paused, breath trembling slightly. I remembered your eyes, the fear in them, the determination. I remembered your voice telling me not to die. I remembered the way you carried me like I was something precious. Jake's chest tightened. Lena continued, voice low, heartfelt. Growing up, I would dream of that day, not because you saved my life, but because you made me feel safe. No one else ever made me feel that way. Jake stared at her, stunned. Lena, you were just a kid. But children feel deeply, she said. And I grew older holding onto that memory. When I finally became of age, I told the elders I would find you, not out of debt, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to know if the man who saved me still cared enough to remember me. Jake swallowed hard. Lena, I did remember, more than I let on. She turned toward him, the lantern glow catching the hope in her eyes. Then why do you run from me? He breathed out slowly, voice strained. Because you deserve a better man than a worn-out cowboy with a past full of mistakes. Lena reached out and took his hand. Do not choose for me what I deserve. Jake felt her warmth, her steadiness, her certainty, and something inside him finally cracked open. Lena, he whispered, I'm scared. She squeezed his hand gently. So am I, but fear means the heart is waking. Jake looked at her, really looked, and for the first time he saw not the girl he rescued, but the woman offering him a future. A future he never thought he could have. The night deepened around them, the stars burning bright over the open desert sky. Jake and Lena sat together on the porch, their hands still intertwined. The silence between them wasn't heavy anymore. It was warm, alive, filled with unspoken promises. Jake let out a long breath. Lena, if you stay with me, life won't be easy. Ranch life is hard. People can be cruel. I'm not rich. I'm not perfect. You are honest, she said. That is enough. He looked at her, surprised by the certainty in her voice. Why me? After all these years, why come back for someone like me? Lena's expression softened into something tender, almost sacred. Because you are the first man who ever protected me without wanting anything in return. In my tribe, such a man is rare. In this world, even rarer. Jake felt his throat tighten. She continued, her voice barely more than a whisper. The night you carried me, I felt safe even as I was dying. I spent years wishing I could thank you properly. Years wondering if you remembered the girl whose blood stained your shirt. Jake closed his eyes, the memory rising like smoke. Her tiny hand gripping his sleeve, her breath shallow, her eyes trusting him even at the edge of death. I never forgot, he said quietly, not for a day. When he opened his eyes, Lena was watching him with a mixture of relief and hope. Then don't send me away. He swallowed hard, emotion building in his chest. I'm not trying to send you away. I'm trying to be sure I'm the man you think I am. Lena leaned closer. Jake Turner, I did not cross half of America to fall in love with an idea. I came for you. The man who saved me. The man who healed me without asking who I was. The man who is still protecting my heart even now. He felt something shift inside him. Something deep, something old, something he didn't even know he'd buried. Loneliness, fear, regret, all of it seemed to loosen beneath her words. The wind rustled the long grass. The horses shuffled in the corral. Somewhere far off, an owl hooted. Jake reached up and touched her cheek, his thumb brushing lightly along her skin. You sure about this? He whispered. Lena closed her eyes, leaning into his hand. I have been sure for years. He took a breath that felt like the first real one in a long time. Then I guess, he paused, emotion thick in his voice. I guess it's about damn time I stopped fighting what was meant for me. Lena opened her eyes, shining with emotion. Does this mean? Yes, Jake said softly. Stay with me. Not because of fate, not because of your tribe. Stay because I want you here, I want you. A slow smile spread across her face, warm, bright, and full of something that looked like destiny. She leaned in and rested her forehead against his. Then I will stay, as long as you'll have me. Jake whispered, forever sounds good. The stars above seemed to glow brighter. The night air felt warmer, and a promise years in the making finally settled into place, quiet, certain, and everlasting. Jake Turner wasn't alone anymore. And Lena had finally found the man fate had always meant for her. Their lives had circled back to each other. And now together they walked forward.